Live from Melbourne, this is 7 Afternoon News with Rebecca Madden.
Good afternoon. First at 4, there has been a sensational development in the Parliament House rape trial. The jury has been discharged without reaching a verdict after it was revealed a juror had accessed information they weren't allowed to. Isabella Mullen reports.
Well, there's been a major development in Bruce Lerriman's rape trial. The jury of 8 women and 4 men have been discharged, with Chief Justice Lucy McCallum announcing there's been a mistrial. Well, it all happened early this morning at around 9:45. The court resumed. And as the jury sat back down, they were told that there has been some jury misconduct. One of the jurors had brought additional information into the jury room. It was a research paper into sexual assault, and it was discovered by accident yesterday by one of 3 sheriff's officers who went into the jury room to clean up at the end of the day. Now, no additional information is allowed in these trials. Miss Higgins was in court supported by her mother and her partner David Shiraz. She cried as Chief Justice McCallum told the court that this jury had been discharged. She spoke outside court this morning.
I chose to speak up and share my experiences with others. My life has been publicly scrutinised, open for the world to see.
Bruce Lerriman left court with his lawyer Stephen Whybrow, who issued a statement later today in response to Miss Higgins' comments, saying that he'd referred them to the Australian Federal Police.
Obviously, everyone's disappointed by what's happened, but it would be inappropriate and irresponsible to say anything at this stage.
Lerriman is subject to some strict bail conditions now. He can't contact Miss Higgins, her family or her partner David Shiraz. He must also inform the Australian Federal Police of his address and give them any itinerary before an overseas trip at least 2 weeks prior to his departure. And it doesn't end here. This case will return to court next year, the Chief Justice setting down a new trial date of February 20, 2023.
A judge has likened a group of 4 men to a pack of animals as they were sentenced for a sickening attack on 2 police officers. Court reporter Estelle Griepink is live with the details. Estelle, 2 of the thugs are now behind bars.
Well, Beck, after more than 4 years free on bail, Philip O'Donnell and Trent Potts are now in jail for their roles in this horrific 2019 assault. The 2 men, along with friends Jake Mitchell and Jack Holdcroft, were sentenced in the county court today in a room packed with supporters. Also in that courtroom, senior constables Darren Shepherd and Adam McKenzie, who were set upon by the group on Fitzroy Street in St Kilda. The 2 officers had arrived to respond to reports that Potts had assaulted someone when the group of thugs turned on them, O'Donnell repeatedly slamming Senior Constable Shepherd's head into the road as the other men threw kicks and punches. O'Donnell was today sentenced to 15 months behind bars and Potts 3 months. Police Association Secretary Wayne Gatt says the assault never should have happened.
They were shocking, they were violent and they acted like animals. People in places like St Kilda should be a little bit more comforted that animals, that bottom-feeding bogans like this have been put away as they rightly should have been.
As for the 2 other men, they both avoided jail time and were instead handed a community corrections order, the judge taking into account the delays in the court proceedings and the intense media scrutiny that each man has been under. Beck?
Estelle Griepink, thank you. And fallen Saints star Sam Fisher has been released from a drug rehabilitation facility. The 40-year-old is preparing to fight drug trafficking charges after his shock arrest 5 months ago. Fisher is now mentoring recovering drug addicts, with the court agreeing to change his bail conditions today. We'll have more on this story tonight in the news at 6 o'clock. One of Melbourne's most notorious serial killers could walk free from prison in a matter of months. Now, the family of a murdered schoolgirl are leading a campaign to keep him locked up. Hope Wilson has more.
Well, he is one of Melbourne's most notorious serial killers, and now Paul Denyer could be out of prison in less than 6 months. He killed 3 women in the space of just 7 weeks in 1993. 18-year-old Elizabeth Anne Marie Stevens, 22-year-old mother Debbie Freem, and schoolgirl Natalie Russell, who was just 17. The serial killer was sentenced to life behind bars. On appeal, he was given a non-parole period of 30 years. That time is almost up, and Denyer has applied to get out of jail in April next year. The decision will be up to a parole board, but there's mounting pressure to keep him locked up. A Change.org petition has more than 32,000 signatures. It was created by a family friend of one of the victims who says Denyer has never shown any remorse for these senseless murders. The decision has left the family of these victims devastated and disgusted that parole is even an option.
I think the whole idea of him even being considered for parole is ridiculous. He had a good trial, and Frank Vincent, the judge, gave him a good hearing. He had psychologists, psychiatrists, and everybody agreed that he should never be allowed out.
Brian Russell fears that if this man is let out, he will kill again. The details for the petition are on our website.
A major shake-up of workplace laws has been unveiled to help deal with cost of living pressures. Live now to political reporter Rachel Baxter in Canberra. Rachel, good afternoon. What is the plan?
Good afternoon, Beck. Well, there's 2 key themes underpinning this bill. The first is flexibility. The government wants to make it easier for workers to talk to their boss about what sort of hours they work and when they work them. It's particularly focused on parents with school-aged students, people living with a disability and domestic violence victims. The second theme is changes to multi-employer bargaining, allowing smaller industries to negotiate enterprise bargaining agreements collectively. Employment Relations Minister Tony Burke, who introduced the bill into Parliament this morning, says it's a way to drive up wages, and unions agree.
To promote job security, to close the gender pay gap, to get wages moving, we need to change the law.
We need these changes, and even if they're not perfect, they'll be a step forward.
Business groups fear the reforms won't be a step forward, though. Instead, a seismic shift to workplace relations in Australia that'll see increased strikes, leading to higher unemployment and adopting a one-size-fits-all approach that won't suit everyone.
If this bill is passed, then many businesses will be forced to cede control over crucial aspects of the way in which they work.
Beck, one point everyone can agree on: cost of living pressures are pushing families to the absolute limit. Stagnating wages, soaring power prices and inflation have been central to budget discussions this week, and likely central to Opposition Leader Peter Dutton's official budget reply speech, which will be delivered tonight.
OK, Rachel Baxter in Canberra, thank you. Premiers Daniel Andrews and Dominic Perrottet have again joined forces, announcing a new $500 million redevelopment of Albury Base Hospital. Services are currently split across the border, forcing some patients to travel between towns. The new site will combine all services under one roof.
This is a really significant day, a massive investment in more care, better care, and making sure that the facilities are cutting edge.
The new facility comes after healthcare workers called for urgent action. The state's public servants are calling for a 4-day work week. We'll have the details next. Also, we take a peek inside the luxurious birdcage in the countdown to the Melbourne Cup Carnival. And later, the new device that's revolutionising heart surgery. Stay with us. We have a jam-packed news hour coming up for you. Victoria's public servants are pushing for a 4-day work week, saying they're overworked and stressed out. For more on this, we are now joined by Karen Batt from the Community and Public Sector Union. Karen, good afternoon to you. How would this idea work realistically?
Good afternoon, Rebecca. What we're actually doing is surveying all the political parties who are running in this state election to see whether they would have the appetite to trial a pilot program around a 4-day working week based on some of the evidence that's emerging out of Europe and Asia and our own area, such as New Zealand, to see if we could actually deal with problems associated with staff retention and attracting people to work for government and other employers.
When you talk about 4 days of work a week, and then you're saying on the one hand that workers are stressed out and you've got problems with retention, wouldn't it add more stress to people if they have got to do 5 days work in 4 days? Because that stresses me out.
I'm sure it would. It stresses all of us out, Rebecca. No, the issue is about looking at how we go about doing work. It's about giving time back to people. What the pandemic has shown is that there are many different ways of working, and the traditional 9 to 5 in an office is not the way that people want to work going forward.
Some people would react to this saying we're creating a lazy workforce.
Oh, absolutely not. The public sector works absolutely some of the hardest working people I've ever seen, whether it's child protection, whether it's youth justice, whether it's dealing with the current floods crisis, whether it's the pandemic response. They have been working 16, 18-hour days, and yet that's never recognised. A lot of it's not paid overtime. This is about trying to find a way that gets them to stay employed, wants them to stay with government as an employer.
Well, on that, sectors like healthcare and child protection, as you mentioned, are already significantly understaffed. So therefore, is it reasonable to be asking for reduced hours in workplaces that are immensely under strain? Isn't this just going to add to the problem?
No, we actually think it will help deal with retention. Part of the issues associated with, say, child protection, we currently have 600 vacant positions across the state. And yet many of the people who are leaving are telling us it's because they cannot cope with the demands of their family and of the job, and the fact that they can't deal with the unfilled vacancies. So their workload is excessive. Finding a way to keep those people who are talking about leaving in the field actually reduces that pressure.
I understand it is easy to obviously focus on the positives working from home, and I agree with you. There are lots of positives for lots of people, but there are also a lot of negatives, and one comes to mind is mental health for me, and being in an environment where you're face-to-face with your colleagues and even your boss.
Mental health issues in the Victorian public sector are significant. The workers' compensation scheme is under serious pressure as a result of work-related stress and vicarious trauma. Where people work is not the determinant factor. It's the trauma that they're exposed to in the job. It's the work intensification of the job. Where they are doing the job is immaterial to the strains and pressures that that job is placing on them.
OK, Karen Batt, appreciate the discussion this afternoon. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Well, Flemington's famous birdcage is back and bigger than ever. Blake Johnson found out what racegoers can expect if they manage to get their hands on a highly coveted ticket.
It's been a year since we came out of lockdown, and still we are saying this is the first time since. Well, today it's the birdcage's turn at Flemington. Steve Rosic is the VRC Chief Executive. Steve, it's lovely to be back in person at what is the grandest week in Melbourne.
It certainly is. It's great to unveil the birdcage today, as you say. First time it's been back for 3 years, and it's back bigger and better than ever before.
What can we expect to see differently this year?
A full birdcage, but also this central promenade area, which is a new initiative, and also the opportunity to go down to the track. Many times people would have said, you've come to the birdcage, you haven't seen a horse, now you can, and make yourself go trackside.
And members have always been allowed into the birdcage area, but until now they've never had a place to gather. That's changed this year?
That's right, this central promenade in the Villa Paradiso style. Great opportunity to sample food and beverage and relax all day in a great environment.
Now the birdcage for many is occasionally out of reach, but there are still tickets available to this particular marquee for the last 2 days of the Cup Carnival.
To Villa Paradiso, it's actually sold out for the first 2 days of the carnival, but for Kennedy Oaks Day and also for Tab Champion Stakes Day, there are opportunities to be in this very environment, and check out vrc.com.au.
How are you feeling about the first Melbourne Cup Carnival out of lockdown since COVID? Have we blown out the cobwebs, ready to go?
Everyone's ready to go. There's 2 sleeps to go to the biggest 4 days in racing, the biggest crowds that you'll see on any race course around the country over the 4 days. We just can't wait.
We just need the weather to come on board, right?
That'd be nice. Fingers crossed. I trust Liam O'Keefe, our track manager. He's got his fingers crossed. I'm very hopeful.
All the best for the Melbourne Cup Carnival coming up.
Thank you very much.
Sounds great. Well, sport is coming up after the break, including a star jockey left stranded for the Melbourne Cup. Also, the Aussie skipper hits back at the critics ahead of a must-win World Cup clash. And the Hump Day rescue as emergency crews pull a stranded camel to safety. Today's top sport and plenty more. Just a few minutes' time. Live from Melbourne, you are watching 7's afternoon news. Grey, dreary, just 15 degrees outside right now. Pretty cold, isn't it? Jane Bunn will be here with the forecast a little later in the hour. Here now, though, is Andrew McCormack with the day's sport. Andrew, a blunt message from Aaron Finch today.
That's right, Beck. Australia's T20 skipper has hit back at questions over Australia's form and selection. The Aussies face England in a must-win clash tomorrow night to keep their World Cup hopes alive. Alan Border and Mark Waugh, just two of the greats who have suggested Australia should axe Finch and Pat Cummins.
It blows my mind sometimes where people go with selection chat and stuff like that. He's been unbelievable over all three formats for a long time.
Adam Zampa is in line to return after a COVID positive, while Glenn Maxwell will take his place in the Aussie 11 after a blow to the neck. Meantime, there's breaking news on the future of Will Pucovski. The Victorian opener will take an indefinite break from cricket due to personal reasons. The 24-year-old stressed it's not related to concussion, which has sidelined him several times over the last 4 years. Former Test captain Tim Payne has doubled down on his criticism of Cricket Australia over the way it handled the sexting scandal, saying he was hung out to dry.
Ideally, I mean, I wouldn't have resigned, but we had obviously known about this for 3 or 4 years at the time and had plans in place with Cricket Australia on how this would be handled if and when it does come out. And unfortunately, that was sort of flipped on its head at the last minute.
A Cricket Australia investigation back in 2018 cleared Payne initially of any code of conduct breach. Caulfield Cup winner Durston has been sensationally scratched from the Melbourne Cup. It leaves star jockey Damien Oller without a ride for the country's feature race on Tuesday. Mitch Cleary has the details.
Well, this is a major blow for next Tuesday's race. Durston scratched just this morning after failing his mandatory CT scan. Now, all horses who race in the Melbourne Cup are required to be tested. Those scans this morning revealing a small lesion in his left hind leg. Trainer Chris Waller and Connections incredibly disappointed. Race Victoria putting safety first.
We can't take any risks when it comes to our feature races. That's the showcase to the world and certainly nationally. Racing gets a small window in the spotlight, and we just need to make sure that our racing is as safe as it can be during that period.
Here at Werribee, Cup favourite Deauville Legend was put through a light workout this morning and has made the 40-hour journey from the UK look incredibly easy, leaving trainer James Ferguson quietly confident.
It's great because it was probably a little bit of a concern of mine before he travelled down. But the fact that he took it well, it was just a breath of fresh air when we got here.
Now, Deauville Legend, like a number of other horses, is still waiting for his scans to be returned, but there is hope it will be okay, given international horses are required to be tested before flying out to Australia.
And the netballer at the centre of the Diamonds sponsorship storm made a dream debut against England last night. Donnell Wallam scored in the dying seconds to clinch an incredible 55-54 goal win for the Aussies in Newcastle. Wallam voiced concerns over Hancock Prospecting's record on Indigenous issues. That led to the company abandoning a $15 million sponsorship deal.
It's been one of the toughest few weeks of my life, so to finally get out there and just play in this dress was just really special.
What a great story. Wallam is the third Indigenous woman to represent the Diamonds. I think the first in 20-odd years. So that was a fantastic story.
David, what a great day.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Well, emergency crews have battled floodwaters in a different type of rescue. Gina, the domestic camel, had wandered away from her herd at a property near Moama, becoming stranded as floodwaters rose. After several days of failed rescue attempts, firefighters finally managed to coax Gina back to dry land. The dramatic end to the Parliament House rape trial as the jury is discharged without a verdict. After the break, we speak to a legal expert about what happens next. Plus, a teenager accused of taking advantage of the Optus cyber attack faces court. And the Melbourne grandmother who's become a pioneer for a new life-saving heart surgery. Stick around, those stories and more after this short break.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7 Afternoon News with Rebecca Madden.
Welcome back. The high-profile Parliament House rape trial has ended in a mistrial because of juror misconduct. One juror has admitted they brought into the jury room an academic paper on sexual assault that was not presented in court. Bruce Lehrman, who was accused of raping fellow Liberal staffer Brittany Higgins after a night of drinking in March 2019, will now be tried again next year. Ms Higgins spoke emotionally outside court moments after the trial was brought to an end. Those remarks have now been referred to the Federal Police by Mr Lehrman's lawyer. Here's some of what Ms Higgins had to say.
I chose to speak up. To speak up against rape, to speak up against injustice, to speak up and share my experiences with others. I was required to tell the truth under oath for over a week on the witness stand and was cross-examined at length. My life has been publicly scrutinised, open for the world to see. And I want to thank the workers in Canberra's healthcare system, without whom I literally wouldn't be here today.
To other news, the 19-year-old accused of trying to make money using stolen Optus data could be facing more serious charges. Andrew Denny has today's developments.
Well, for the first time since being arrested earlier this month, we've seen 19-year-old Dennis Sue come before courts, accused of trying to use the Optus data breach for his own financial gain. The 19-year-old from Rockdale has been charged with telephone blackmail and inappropriately dealing with identification information after he allegedly accessed customer data from the Optus leak that had been posted on a hacker forum online. Accused of then sending text messages to 93 customers demanding payments of $2,000 to stop their information from being leaked.
What sort of a person does this with Optus customers' data?
Now, there's no suggestion that Sue was involved in the original hack, rather that he was just opportunistic when he came across the posted information. Today, his lawyer indicated he planned on pleading guilty, but prosecutors have applied for the case to be adjourned while they review the two charges he's currently facing, potentially changing or upgrading them.
These are serious charges and the offender is now facing up to 10 years imprisonment.
Sue will be back here in court next month, where he's expected to face sentence as the global hunt for the Optus hacker continues.
The threat of soaring power prices revealed in the federal budget is threatening to derail the manufacturing industry. Companies that rely on gas are joining forces with unions to demand action before workers lose their jobs.
Companies having to make a hard choice in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, whether they can keep the doors open and keep our members employed at work.
Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor says the government has reneged on promises to reduce power bills.
This is an extraordinary time that needs a government that has a plan, not just a series of gloomy forecasts. Australians are hurting and this government is showing no understanding of that plan.
Unions are calling for a cap on gas prices or a reduction in the amount of gas exported overseas. Australia will deploy more troops to the UK to help train Ukrainian forces in the fight against Russia. 70 defence personnel will join the multinational training effort just after Christmas, but will not enter Ukraine.
What we're really seeing with the war in Ukraine is that this is developing into a long-term, protracted conflict.
The federal government will also provide $100 million in support, including 30 Bushmasters. A grandmother has become the first Victorian to undergo life-changing new keyhole surgery to replace a leaky heart valve. It's estimated 500,000 Australians have the potentially deadly condition, which can result in blood flowing the wrong way. For more on this, we're now joined by Dr Shane Naniyaka from the Alfred Hospital. Good afternoon to you, Doctor. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Can you explain how this technology works?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. So as you said, this condition called mitral regurgitation is where blood goes the wrong way through the heart, where the main pumping chamber should be pushing forward into the body, the blood instead leaks backwards. Now, all this while we've had ways with surgery, open heart surgery, to replace or repair that mitral valve. And now for the first time at the Alfred, we've had this opportunity to replace that valve, but using minimally invasive catheter-based techniques rather than using open surgery.
All right, so does this mean that more Victorians, especially those who are vulnerable, will now be eligible for this surgery because of this change?
That's exactly right. So patients who were previously very high risk and not suitable for the risks associated with open heart surgery can now consider this as an option. And that's part of the workup that we perform when they come in to determine, are they suitable for surgery or are they suitable for this approach?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand about 500,000 Australians can or could be affected. Just how dangerous can it be?
That's right. So when this blood leaks and goes the wrong way, typically the symptoms patients get are shortness of breath, initially beginning with exertion, but then progressing to the point that they start to get swelling in the legs, feeling tired and fatigued, and eventually leading to a condition called heart failure. Picking it up early is useful because we can start medications that can start to help the heart to improve. However, if it does get to this stage, then we have therapies like this that we can now offer to patients.
And for people who may need to undergo this surgery, what are the first steps?
Well, the most important test that we arrange is called an echocardiogram. So when you see your GP, they'll listen to your heart, see if there are murmurs, sounds of valves leaking, for example. An echocardiogram, which is an ultrasound of your heart, can then determine if there is a valve leak. From there, they'll refer you on to see a cardiologist, like one of our team over at the Alfred, who can then work up and decide, do you need your valve repaired or replaced?
Oh, this is going to change the life of so many people. Doctor, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Well, the Socceroos take a stand against Qatar's human rights record just weeks out from the World Cup, plus the deadly crash after a shocking armed robbery and everything you need to know about tonight's $160 million Powerball jackpot. You are watching 7 News. We are live from the Docklands. Returning to our top story now, and there's been a sensational development in the Parliament House rape trial. The jury has been discharged after a juror admitted to accessing information they shouldn't have. Let's bring in Associate Professor Jackie Horan from Monash University's law facility. Jackie, good afternoon. Now, the Chief Justice has called for a retrial, but could the prosecution choose not to proceed here?
Yes. The prosecution will have a look at their evidence that they can go on to a second trial and determine whether they've got enough evidence to proceed.
OK, so that is not guaranteed, that retrial. Now, Brittany Higgins said she felt as though she was on trial, but normally the public wouldn't know the identity of a sexual assault complainant, so it is an unusual situation. Do you think other alleged victims have different experiences before the court?
What we know from other victims that have spoken out in the past is that common theme of going to trial is like going through the whole ordeal again and again. So there is that common theme with rape victims that they feel the criminal justice system is tough.
Let's focus on what happened with the jury today. How common is it for a jury to be dismissed for misconduct?
It's pretty uncommon for a jury to be dismissed for conduct, for looking at research, looking up things like what does beyond reasonable doubt mean. But in my opinion, I think a lot of jurors do it secretly. They just don't get found out because jurors want to do a great job and they're so earnest and so committed to getting it right, and it's instinctive for them to go on the internet and look up legal phrases that they're not comfortable with.
Will there be any consequences for the juror who did do this, even though maybe it was to help with the decision?
There is that possibility. In New South Wales, a juror potentially could be jailed for up to 2 years, which is crazy. They're doing their civic duty and they're being earnest and honest about trying to do the right thing, and it just seems so unfair that that would happen. But very, very few jurors have faced that. That's designed for rogue jurors, not earnest jurors that are just doing the wrong thing by following their instincts.
Brittany Higgins was very emotional outside the courthouse today in her speech. Will she find herself in any legal trouble, do you suspect?
This is such an unprecedented case. Who knows? There's never been a situation like this before. I'm sure the AFP will look into it, but it's anybody's guess as to whether anything will come out of it in that aspect.
All right, Associate Professor Jackie Horan, really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.
Not at all.
It has been revealed a bandit who died in a car crash while fleeing a botched robbery in Melbourne's east slammed into a four-wheel drive before being driven by his own cousin. The cousin attempted CPR, unaware he was related to the 25-year-old.
When we found out there was a fatality, I was taken back because you never like to hear someone's lost their life.
The man's co-offender is being questioned by police. Crime reporter Cameron Bowe will have more details in the 6 o'clock bulletin. Just weeks out from the FIFA World Cup, the Socceroos have spoken out against Qatar's human rights record. A video message featuring 16 players is calling for the decriminalisation of same-sex relationships and better treatment of migrant workers.
We have learned that the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar has resulted in the suffering and in the harm of countless of our fellow workers.
Australia is the first nation to release a collective statement about conditions in Qatar. And Robert Avadia has been talking to Francis Oratifi, a former Socceroo and chair of the Professional Footballers of Australia, the organisation behind that video.
Well, that video we just saw is the brainchild of Professional Footballers Australia. Joining me now is the body's chairman, Francis Oratifi. Francis, hi. Tell us why.
Well, look, I think there's been a raft of concerns over many years around the rights of migrant workers, especially their labour rights and human rights in regard to the way they've been treated and the impact that that's had in terms of the harms that they've suffered.
Gay rights as well is a firm part of this campaign?
Yeah, we're looking at the rights of the LGBTQIA plus community, both in Qatar and also of the fans who will be travelling to the World Cup to go and see these teams play. And there's been a lot of concern around whether or not fans are going to feel safe being themselves whilst they're enjoying the World Cup in Qatar.
Has there been any criticism that you've seen that this is not the place of footballers to get this message out? Or do you think quite the contrary?
Look, I think it's quite the contrary. I think the days of telling footballers or athletes to shut up and dribble is well and truly over. These issues are matters of not politics, they're matters of human rights. And I think that your politics and your economic circumstances, they come after your human rights, basically. So your human rights always comes first. So, and that's the prism through which the players have taken this action.
Francis, appreciate that. Good luck with the campaign. The Soccer World Cup 2022 in Qatar very, very shortly. Good luck to the Socceroos too.
Thank you so much, Robert Avadia. Well, tonight's Powerball draw has a record-breaking $160 million jackpot. Tom Hartley has crunched the numbers to find out how lucky you have to be to win.
Yes, that would be nice. Yes, it would. Oh, we've just been spending the day doing what a lot of people have done in Australia, and that's daydreaming and imagining what life would be like with an extra $160 million. Now, this is something that you could buy. Several, in fact. It's a super yacht based here in Sydney. The corroboree is 33 metres long and valued around $3.5 to $4 million. Maybe you want to invest your money in some property. You could get this waterfront mansion at Maroubra in Sydney's eastern suburbs for $20 million. Or how about a mid-century home in the middle of Sydney Harbour? This one's on the market for $50 million.
It's third generation and a lot of love, a lot of happiness in the home, but hopefully it goes to a lovely family with children and they can share the love that we were lucky enough to have in it.
If you want an even bigger parcel of land, Pumpkin Island off central Queensland is seeking offers a smidge over $24 million. Or maybe you just want to take a big, long break.
We've got our eyes set on Hawaii.
Yeah, we would be going there. Big trip.
Maldives.
I would go to Switzerland.
But let's be real, let's think this through for just a moment. To win Division 1, you need to select all 7 winning numbers plus the Powerball number in a single game panel. The chances of winning Division 1 in Powerball based on one standard game are 1 in 134,490,400.
If one person takes home that entire $160 million prize, they'll immediately become the biggest individual lottery winner ever.
So if you haven't bought a ticket yet, maybe you're better off just buying some shares in the lot. Unsurprisingly, they're on their way up.
All right, a new art exhibition has arrived in Melbourne. Next, see Flinders Street Station like you've never seen it before. And Jane Bunn will join us for a look at the weather forecast. The Flinders Street Station's dilapidated ballroom and 10 other rooms unused for decades have been transformed into a unique art gallery. Street artist Roan has spent 4 years painting the walls, installing furniture and coordinating music as a tribute to Melbourne's workers of a bygone era. He spoke with Nick McCallum today.
I'm in one of the rooms that you didn't know existed in Flinders Street Station. It's now become a canvas for Roan. Roan, why did you want to take over this area of Flinders Street Station?
It's such an icon to Melbourne, so I was just, it basically sent me down a journey just trying to see if I could ever actually present an exhibition in this space. It was a good 2.5 years convincing people and maybe a year and a half trying to construct it all. Yeah.
Let's talk first of all about the ballroom. Why is that such a great space for this sort of work?
It's a dilapidated, beautiful kind of gem of Melbourne City that hasn't been used for, a generation. This mysterious space that, not many people have actually been able to visit within my own kind of generation.
And what are you trying to get at with all the rooms? You're sort of going back in time and reimagining history at the heyday of the Flinders Street Station, aren't you?
Yeah, just because the place has been forgotten about, I kind of like to present it as if it has, no one has been here and everyone's walked away from, half a century ago, and we're able to step back in time and see how industries and education once worked.
And do you hope this will reinvigorate this area, obviously open it up to people of Victoria, but also actually get it used more?
Yeah, I really hope it becomes a community space again. That it'll be quite amazing to see it, loved and used again.
Okay, thank you very much, artist Roan, in an area where so few Melburnians have been.
Just beautiful. Thank you, Nick. Let's take a quick look at Melbourne's roads now.
Good afternoon. There's been a crash on the Hume Freeway northbound just before Craigieburn Road East. It has the right-hand lane out of action. It's crawling from the Ring Road. And a crash on the Ring Road Altona bound at Airport Drive causing big hold-ups past Pascoe Vale Road. Moving soon? Make your next move movable.com.au. Plan your move with instant prices and online booking for more than just your removalist. Save time, avoid the stress at movable.com.au. I'm Tamara Eden from the Movable Traffic Centre.
Jane Bunn joins us now. Jane, it's been a pretty miserable day out there.
Becca, there are showers streaming across Melbourne. Now, tomorrow brings a lot more of them, but it should be chilly too. Last night was our last night of high humidity. The low was 15. It reached 19 in between the showers. Now, earlier this week, we had cloud overhead, but the air was humid and the winds light, so it felt sweaty out there. Now, today, that started to change. Still cloudy, but look at the rough bay. The wind helps cool it down. In those winds, showers are streaming across the Melbourne area, tending to persistent rain at times. It's cool when it's wet, a touch warmer in the dry breaks. And as they are showers, they are hit and miss, start and stop. Now, hardly anything into the rain gauge. In Geelong, 0 millimetres, but have a look at the city, 13, and there's 28 in Watsonia. These showers are streaming across southern Victoria too and making it up and over the ranges, then petering out as they reach the Mallee. There are thunderstorms in the far east of the state. A complex low is over Tasmania. We had air from the Pacific Ocean, now that's changing. The lines, they form tracks from where that air moves. Now tomorrow's air is coming down from right near Antarctica. That's not humid, that's chilly. There is more wet weather to come tomorrow. It eases on Saturday. It'll ramp up again later Sunday into Monday. Then from Tuesday to Thursday, we are in another chilly spell, lots of showers and even some alpine snow. Around the nation tomorrow, sunshine for Brisbane and Sydney. Showery in Canberra, lots of showers in Hobart. Adelaide and Perth are generally dry. To Victoria, wet across the south and ranges, a bit like we saw today, with widespread showers tending to areas of rain. Now, less showers on the northern plains and up in that northwestern corner. It is cool to cold. It's cold enough for snow in the Alps, and we have a gusty westerly wind. So in Melbourne, it is another wet day. We have lots of showers streaming on through, and that does tend to persistent rain at times. Now, that there is not an error. The top is likely to be only 14 degrees, and with no more humidity at all, that means it'll feel like it's down in the single digits. So very chilly tomorrow. Tomorrow it wouldn't be out of place in the middle of winter. I'll have more at 6, Beck. Right up tomorrow. Look at your face.
Shock. 14.
Yes, 14, and that's the top. Yeah, feeling about 8 or 9 for much of the day. Thanks for the wind
jumper,
too.
boots, socks,
The
bring it all
full thing.
back. Thank you. Well, coming up on 7 News at 6, a union protester fronts court for kicking a dog during a wild demonstration outside the construction union's headquarters, charged with animal cruelty. He claims it was self-defence. The true cost of our floods revealed, $5 billion worth of crops wiped out, how that is going to hit shoppers. And the suburbs facing noisier nights under changes to Melbourne's flight paths. 7 News cameras get rare access to discover why. And that is all from Melbourne's afternoon news. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll be back with Mike Amor tonight at 6 o'clock. But for now, from the 7 News team, enjoy the rest of your afternoon.